surviving the world of freelance, like the ups and downs, and it humbles you, but it also makes you really strong. Once you realize you can survive in the freelance world, you're not afraid of being fired anymore.
Back again on the Pencil Kings podcast. Today I'm especially excited because I think it was about 6 months ago, Joe sent me an email and he was inside the Pencil Kings community and he told me how we needed to improve. And I think that just speaks to what Joe does because Joe is an art director. So I think Joe's going to have a lot of insight as far as working with an art director and how you can become appealing to that person that's ultimately going to hire you. So Joe's got a huge wealth of knowledge and experience. So welcome to the call, Joe. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mitch. How are you?
I'm doing good. The sun is shining right now. I know it's nighttime in the US, but I'm still over in Asia. So it's a nice blue sky day, which is hit and miss here. But let's get into your story. And why don't you give people a 2-minute overview of what you're working on now and sort of where you came from?
Sure. Right now, I'm at company CBN working on a show called Superbook, which is a biblical animated series. Most of my career, I've actually worked in a lot of Christian-based animation things. I started off in 2000 after I graduated. I was hired by Big Idea to do Veggie Tales. I did that. I started as a prop designer, moved my way up to a journeyman layout artist to becoming an art director. From there, I just I left and freelanced for a whole mess load of people. Doing children's books, created my own app children's book. And eventually got called by DreamWorks to find out they were actually rebooting Veggie Tales into Veggies in the House, which comes out later on this month. So I spent about 6 months designing that show there when I just decided it was the right time to move back to this job that I'm currently at because it just seemed like just a better opportunity for me and my family.
Let's dive into your time at Veggie Tales. Like, how did you? I know breaking in is a big topic with a lot of people. They're hustling, they're working on their portfolios, they're putting their stuff up online. Do you have any advice? Because I know you've seen a lot of artists come through, and I'm sure you've opened the door for a lot of people as well.
Yeah, a few of my alma mater from Syracuse. I got in the door, and I felt pretty proud about that. Never sell your college short, because for a lot of artists out there, we all feel really insecure that we have the job we have because we all don't think we're worthy of it. At least that's been my experience. So yeah, I've helped other people just kind of like paying it forward. And, the way I got into the industry was at my school. They had this thing called Symposium where we'd have a guest speaker come in. Now, this was back in 1999. I was completely oblivious to concept art. The only thing I really knew about was children's book illustration and editorial illustration, traditional media. Wasn't that great at it, but I did a lot of figure drawing, which I was pretty good at. And I started learning digital stuff, actually painting with a mouse and stuff at the end of my senior year. So it was kind of in the infancy of the digital age. And back then they just didn't have a lot of books that talked about concept design, and let alone the blogs and everything that people have today. So when I went to Symposium one day, there was a guy that my professor brought in just for me because I had gotten pretty tight with my professors. Tip one to anybody who's going to art school: get in close with your professors. Your professors will help you out. But my professor actually invited a guy named Michael Spooner to just speak to our class about illustration for cartoons. And he was a layout design artist, visual development. He had actually designed some of my favorite Disney after-school specials. He worked on a lot of feature films that I liked. His presentation just blew me away because I, number one, didn't know people actually illustrated animated moments before an animated film started. I didn't even know about people designing environments. I mean, I saw cartoons all my life, but I never even put two and two together that could be an actual job. So I met with the guy and we got to talking, and I just asked him a lot of tips and everything. And I must have had a good impression on him because he just happened to be on his way to a job interview for Veggie Tales. He became the art director over there, and he remembered me and my friend at the time. And he said, look, I just found two great young guys coming out of school. And, wouldn't it be great if we hired them? Well, what happened was we spent a year preparing our portfolios to get that job. And honestly, when we graduated, the job was not available to us. And it was this huge letdown. I went home not knowing what the heck to do. For about a year, I was at home doing nothing but trying to reinvent my portfolio. I probably redid my portfolio 3 times. My dad and mom were very supportive, but they were also thinking, you should stop calling these people at Big Idea to work on this cartoon. It might be a bit of a pipe dream. And you should, maybe look to get into web design, because that was hot at the time. And so I built my portfolio up. I started taking web design classes, but it was in my head. I really want to work for this company. And then it was one of these weird things where I was surfing on monster.com. The Thai toy company was actually hiring, and they were right down the street from VeggieTales. And I thought, well, if I can just get in there, I can always be like right around the corner to interview to work on VeggieTales.
That's awesome.
And so it was in Illinois. I was in Pennsylvania. I told my mom and dad, I said, look, I had $1,500, I think, to my name. And I said, I'm going to go in this car. I'm going to drive to Chicago. I don't know what's going to happen, but I am going to get a job. My dad, I think, admired my bravery, but my mom was just scared for me. But I just had it in my head. I was kind of fed up with being unemployed and living in my house. And through a series of setbacks while I was out there, I finally managed to get into Big Idea to show my portfolio again. And you know how they say it's timing? I came in there at the exact moment another guy was deciding to leave. He probably while I was there made the choice to leave to go to go back to LA. And they were looking for somebody in my position. And I showed them my book again. And they said, well, do you have more stuff like this? I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, I showed you a whole portfolio about 6 months ago. Do you want me just to show it to you again? And they said, yeah. Show it to us again. So I went home for 3 weeks. I made about 4 new pieces for my book. And they flew me out. And they were really impressed. And, and they hired me. I still remember the phone call. They asked me how much I wanted to get paid, and I gave them a really low figure, and that I don't even know if I could have lived on. And the lady on the phone just laughed, and she's like, well, how about this figure? And she gave me a much higher figure. And I was just like, you bet. But yeah, so then I started there, and then starting a job is one thing, keeping it is another. For me, it was just a very stressful thing starting, because I was working with guys who were from Disney, Sony, DreamWorks, a veritable who's who of super talent. And not to mention, the art director was the guy I met in college who drew everything I imagined when I was a kid. Man, I took some harsh critiques. I can't tell you how many times I put what I thought was the best drawing I had ever done in front of my boss. And up to maybe the 6th pass, there would be at least anywhere from 20 to 9 to 5 things wrong with an image. It would decrease as it went forward. The 6th version, he'd be like, yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, I changed just 1 or 2 things, but you know what? We're out of time. It's good though. So I had to really accept and embrace criticism. And it was really hard at first, because you think you're doing your best, and then all of a sudden you find out, wow, my stuff's not good, and you worry about, they're gonna fire me, or something like that. But my boss was very patient, and he trained me. I try to do the same for the people that I'm with, and some people can take that criticism, and some people, they have a tougher time with it.
You thought it was a fair gamble. Either I'd find myself or get it out of my...
I'm kind of amazed at how similar your path was to mine. I guess
really?
One of the things I really admire with the story that you just told is that point when you just decided, $1,500 and you decide, I'm going to make it happen. And do you think, that was, what year was that? Maybe around 2000 or 2001, something like that?
Yeah, 2001, I think it was.
Would you recommend that same sort of path to people these days if they knew that they wanted to work at a specific studio, like they had their target set? I think I would recommend that people go for it and start to try and meet those people and get your foot in the door any way possible. Because if you haven't broken in yet, I feel like that's the hardest step, is to get that first company or that first project on your resume that somebody can go, oh, I know that project. Or if they don't know the project, they could go to YouTube and type in the name and see the trailer or see some clips from it.
I think that's going to be smart advice until we run out of jobs. Hunger is everything. When I look at younger people coming out of school, especially, you don't just look at any younger artist. You can tell who's got some chops. Plenty of artists that graduate 4 years. Some of them try their hardest and they're just not developed yet after 4 years. And I don't think I was. I think I needed that extra year to get to a point where I had stuff that I could show. But some people, I worked with two girls. Their names are Ellie and Ali Ceballos, ellieali.com or something, I think is their website. They were 19 when I met them, and those girls were better than me. I mean, and they're not everybody is like that out there, but there are those people that are I mean, they're blessed. I mean, that's all I can think of to say it. That's kind of how they were. It was like all the laws of composition and everything. They were bending and skewing them, and but they were doing them in such a way that every composition looked amazing. And here I am. I'm in the industry for 15 years, and I'm just like, if I can only do a drawing as good as these kids, So, and everybody felt that way. And those people like Ellie and Ali, they are there, but there's not near enough of them to discourage you from trying to get into animation because they are those rare exceptions where you meet them and you go, wow, look at that. And then there's tons of people that like risen really high in the industry. And even my old boss, Michael Spooner, he talks about how the hardest thing he ever learned how to do was to draw for animation, because he had to draw something without reference. He had to make it up, make it look believable. And I remember my first impression when I went into his room, he was drawing, it was a wilting weed, and he had maybe 30 versions of it scrapped on the floor. He couldn't figure it out. And he said to me later, he said, a good drawing for me, he's like, is like sculpting something out of stone. It's like Michelangelo trying to carve something out of stone, and I'm chiseling, and I finally get to something that's worth polishing. He had his friends that that he helped start to train, and like Paul Felix, and he's like, when Paul draws something, for me it's like chiseling rockets. For him it's like a hot knife through butter. It's just so easy for him, and he just knows how to carve it out. He knows how to make a beautiful drawing happen like on the first pass. For everybody, as long as the work ethic is there, that grit of I won't give up, I don't care how hard it is, I'm going to keep fighting, you'll land something.
I like to tell people that for every one artist, the rock star that everybody looks up to or is sort of famous or semi-famous online, there's like, I don't know, maybe 100 or more people that are working, on similar projects that don't have that rock star status, that even if you're not at that level, there's still lots of room for you if you're hungry, if you put in more time, if you're more dedicated, and if you have like a better personality and people want to work with you. I feel that it's so important.
That's huge. I think you hit the nail on the head. Your art ability is extremely important if you want people to continue working with you. If you want, when I was at Big Idea, there was 6 layoffs, and I survived them all. I can't say for 100%. I mean, there's technical reasons why I survived them, but I have to believe that there's, one of the things that helped me out was that I was, I'm told that I was likable. And I've been told that by freelance clients before, that they just enjoy working with me because it's not annoying when I call. It might be annoying to some people.
I have something more, something none of your dry as dust professors and routine-ridden doctors have. Love, devotion, passion.
You've worked with so many people. How does somebody sort of get on your radar? I feel that a lot of the listeners would love to break in, but how, I mean, grit and determination is one thing, but how does somebody's portfolio stand out when you're looking to hire? What's some advice that people could maybe take away, then apply to their own portfolio that would help them to get noticed?
Well, I got to say, networking essentially, in my mind, means building relationships and friendships with people. The first people that I call when I need a layout person, a colorist, generally it's the people that I know. And most of the time, those people are working. So I say, do you got any people that you trust, or that you think are pretty good that I ought to look at? And that'll be my first resort. Number one thing is having a visible web presence, that you regularly publish stuff and befriend people that do have great websites or great artists. You don't bother them, you don't hassle them, you don't heckle them. You compliment their pieces of artwork if you like them. But largely, I'd say that the best thing is just to be friendly. At the same time, continue producing cool artwork that you would publish and put up either on Facebook or just any kind of form. Have a blog you update all the time. And a lot of people think that blogs are old news. It's not really true, because one of the first things that when I was at DreamWorks that we did then is we look at people's artwork on their blogs. It is what a portfolio used to be, and sometimes I need to see more. It's really not all that often that I do. And if you get to know somebody through social media, and they get familiar with your face, or they like some of the comments or insights you have, just on a personal level, and they may make comments on your work and they'll remember you. And it's so building friendships is huge. And I'd suggest any kind of educational site too to invest in, whether it be Pencil Kings or any other one that you'd be comfortable with. There's oftentimes professionals on the other side of that. Like when I was on Pencil Kings, I think I reached out to a few of the artists who did some really good stuff. One of them was a friend of mine, Mark Bean, that I used to work with. And just basically complimented them for doing such a great job on Pencil Kings. And all of a sudden, I guess I'm kind of a known entity to them, and that's not always going to generate work, and it's really not the point. But the point is that you're reaching out there and talking to people. Be good and be friendly and be sociable, and you'll meet people. And when you meet people and they know you, they recommend you if they like your work. There's a lot of ways to get in. That is a big one. But there's also something to just being really talented and really just bombarding a company too. I hate to say it, but there is some. Yeah, I mean, you have to find a fine line between being a stalker, because there's been artists at companies that I've worked at who, they'd always say, "Oh, we got another letter from so and so," and we all just kind of gather around and laugh and stuff. But you take it pretty seriously if that person does some awesome work,
Yeah.
But if their work is not awesome, then you just kind of have a laugh, and it's mean, I guess. But you try to be nice, try to give everybody constructive criticism. I gotta say, it is amazing out there how many people are. Just as often as there's people that are great that have egos, it's amazing. It amazes me people who are not great that have tremendous egos.
I actually think that the ego is maybe something that's not necessarily a bad thing for people. I know I had this huge ego when I was younger, and it would sort of be tongue in cheek and be like, everything will be okay because I'm on the team. And I'm the most junior guy on the team. In my head, I believed it. Like I knew I would be, a really solid member of the team. Some people, especially artists, we have a lot of like weird mindset issues. And if you don't feel like you're going to be great someday, maybe you should look at that and see why you think you're not going to be great, because you can. Anybody can be great if they really want to and if they're hungry enough.
And one of the best things about like a well-checked ego, I guess you'd say, is that it's enough armor to survive the storm of criticism.
Yeah.
When I was at DreamWorks, the IT guy came in. Unfortunately, there was somebody who was let go. And we were all pretty disheartened by it because we liked this person a great deal. And, the IT guy came in and you saw that we were all bummed out about it. And he had said, he's like, the difference between you and some of these other people that I've seen get let go over the years, it seems everybody on this team has a strong personality. None of you guys are afraid to speak up when you're in a room. And I think that's really true. I mean, one of my good friends who ended up, going back to DreamWorks and becoming a really big power player over there, he's one of the most opinionated dudes I know. But darn it, he's a good storyteller, And there's a difference between being opinionated and being like a snob, and being opinionated and just thinking like, hey, I've got some know-how, I've got some chops. I'm gonna, I'm not afraid to put my ideas out there. All of my friends who had very strong personalities and very strong, confident in knowing what they're doing. A lot of them are heads of departments now over at Pixar. So I think there is something to that. I think one of the best things that ever happened to me was that we did have a layoff after 8 years at Big Idea. The entire creative division got laid off except for the people who were writers and directors. So all us artists and composers and everything, editors, we all got laid off and just turned into freelancers. It's like the ups and downs, and it humbles you, but it also makes you really strong. Once you realize you can survive in the freelance world, you're not afraid of being fired anymore. And being liberated of that fear, makes you feel confident to have your opinions heard, because you'll be all right. As long as you're not a jerk, you don't want to be a jerk. Nobody wants to work with a jerk.
Right. I would sort of suggest that if somebody has yet to start, that they get some experience under their belt before they go freelance. But there are those people that can just hop right into freelance and they get it. That for whatever reason, I know I wouldn't be one of those people, but
you never know until you have to be. I think I get survived.
I guess
I can't tell you how many times that my first couple of days, I just had gotten married and I just found out my wife was pregnant and I got laid off. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Oh, my God, I'm a failure. This is terrible. What has happened to me? And I got to tell you, there were many times where initially I was a day away from like thinking, okay, this is the month I get this. Tomorrow's the day I get evicted. And then a check came in the mail. I'm like, hooray. But then those days passed. And all of a sudden I was making more money than I ever had before, because your name gets around, like you're good, this guy's trustworthy. You do one job, you do it well, and people recommend you. You start getting phone calls from people you don't even know. Or you work with somebody and they liked working with you, and they said, I can draw this book really well, but I need somebody to color it for me. Will you do that? I made a lot of money off of jobs where I was just the colorist for somebody. I mean, and another thing that I wanted to make sure I got out there is, I work in the Christian industry. There was an artist that spoke when I was in Syracuse, and her name was Anita Kuntz. She had said to me privately, the real key to making it in this industry is find something you like doing that doesn't have a lot of other artists doing it well, and find that niche. That way, anytime people need a go-to person in that small niche environment, they always think of you first. And I'm a Catholic, I go to church every week, and, I always was made fun of for it when I was growing up. Little holy boy going to be a priest one day. I was interested in the stories and the subject matter, and, I wanted to illustrate it because I love, Doré's stuff. And like Paradise Lost, it was just such a cool story. It was this huge epic war, Anyway, so I had a real interest in this stuff. Lo and behold, I got really good at it. All of a sudden, almost, I'd say more than half of the work that I get is, I'd say 3/4 of the work that I get is Christian work. And I don't have any flyers out my door that says Christian artist only will work on Christian stuff. I just, I'm in that niche now, and people really want to hire me for that niche.
I've been given the same advice by someone that I worked with. That the advice that I got is that if you're willing to do the jobs that nobody else wants to do, it's so easy for somebody to find a place for you. For me, doing outsourcing is not necessarily a glamorous job. I've worked on so many projects, no credit for them. My IMDb is it doesn't even exist. I've worked on I think 11 films, and my IMDb doesn't even exist. But I didn't care. I just loved the work, and it didn't matter what kind of jobs. Like, we need another person to do rotoscoping. So for the next 3 weeks, I'm just tracing lines and working with splines. And if you can carve out some kind of niche for yourself, I saw one guy recently, and his portfolio was all mechs. So when they came out with this new like Mech Warrior Online game, it's like, who are they going to get to design the new version of these mechs? Like, and if he's a cool person to work with, I mean, it's a cinch.
I wouldn't get that job. My portfolio is not geared toward that job. So it's all about how you gear it.
So we're about at the end of the call, Joe. Where can people find you online, and what's the best way to reach out if somebody wanted to get in touch, say hello, or possibly hire you for a job?
I have a Blogspot page. It's a little outdated, but that's joesartwork.blogspot.com. So it's got a lot of my older VeggieTales stuff on there, but I'm on Facebook. It's Joe Spadaford on Facebook. Shoot me your stuff, or you want me to look at your work. I'd gladly look at anybody's work, especially anybody who can do layout design work. I'm always interested in see somebody who I can fill in to do some layout work.
And we'll have show notes from this at pencilkings.com/Joe Spadaford. That's JoeSpadaford. And we will have a dash in between those. So Joe-Spadaford from pencilkings.com. So thank you so much, Joe, for being on the call. I hope that listeners got a lot. I know I did, and it kind of confirmed a lot of what I thought. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll be in touch soon.
Very cool. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay,
Bye.
Bye-bye.
That's it for this episode. We'll be back next week. If you'd like to find out a little bit more about what we do, head on over to pencilkings.com/podcast.
That's what happens to all of us.